Hello, I'm Rose Levy Beranbaum. I'm here in the Betty Crocker kitchens and on behalf of Gold Medal Flour to share some wonderful baking tips with you. As in all things in life, what you put into it is what you get out. And excellence of ingredients is really the essence of wonderful cake baking. For me, the most important ingredient is flour because it's the soul of cake baking. And there's really not that much to know about flour, but what there is very important. There are basically two kinds of all-purpose flours. One is unbleached and therefore has a higher protein content. That means it will brown more, and it also means that for butter cakes, it will not integrate well with the other ingredients. It will not emulsify, is the word, and the center of the cake will dip. If that's ever happened to you, it's probably because you're using unbleached flour or you're using too much leavening. But the flour that's ideal is the bleached all-purpose flour. If you have a recipe using cake flour and you prefer to have a slightly firmer texture, if you find that it's falling apart, it's very easy to convert to the all-purpose bleached by using 3/4 of a cup of all-purpose plus 2 tablespoons. But if you want it to have the same texture and the same color as a cake flour, then you would use 3/4 of a cup of the bleached all-purpose and 2 tablespoons of cornstarch, because the cornstarch has no protein, and so it won't brown as much, and it will also not have as much of a chewy texture. The Wonder Flour is a flour that I absolutely adore for genoise, for things, angel food cake, where you need to have it integrate really easily into the batter. I've developed several recipes which I just adore using the Wonder, and you can see it's a very silky, very fine, really different looking flour. And of course the cornstarch is not used ever on its own, but used in conjunction with all-purpose flour, as I said, to lower the protein content. People's biggest complaints when they have problems with cake baking seems to be that the cakes are dry and heavy. And it's invariably because they measure the flour incorrectly. If you use too much flour, that's exactly what's going to happen. And there are different methods of determining how much a cup of flour should be. Some people in some recipes use what they call the dip and sweep method, where they dip the cup into a canister and level it off. That way you're going to get the most flour. The Betty Crocker test kitchens developed their recipes by spooning the flour lightly into the cup and leveling it off. My recipes, I sift into the cup and level it off, and I get the least amount of flour. So it all depends. You have to follow how the recipe tells you to do it. This is why I prefer weighing, because weighing is only one weight and you don't have to worry about utensils. So the way I would weigh is I would set the cup on the scale and take out the weight with what's called the tare function. There's a little tare button and it turns it to 0. And then I just put the flour in. You don't have to sift if you weigh. If you measure, then you do. So here's the way to properly measure doing my recipes. And I'll show you the spooning method next. I'm using an electric sifter just because it's faster when you're making a genoise and you need to move quickly because the egg foam is deflating and you want to add the flour quickly, but otherwise you can use a colander or a sieve. And if you're using Wonder Flour, which is so light and blends so beautifully into other ingredients, you don't have to sift at all, even to measure. You just dust it into the cup. You want it to mound over the top. Incidentally, Wonder Flour makes the most heavenly of all angel cakes. It's because it doesn't deflate the whites, it's so light. Okay, now it's mounded over the top, and I just run a straight edge. It can be a knife or a metal spatula. This is my favorite. I brought back from Switzerland and take it with me wherever I go. This is 1 cup of sifted flour. And here is the Betty Crocker way. You lightly spoon it in, because if you were to just dump it in, you'd get more flour again. You could just hold it right over the bowl. and then level it off. And now you have 1 cup of Betty Crocker recipe flour. And just follow the recipes and how they tell you to do it, and you're going to have great cakes.